So we're going to start and tell everybody that we recorded this previously, this topic, but the internet was really bad and we were lagging. So if we say, did I say this or did I say this already? I might do that a little bit. So, but today we're going to talk about, and I'm excited, the Indigenous people that were living there and before the colonial people really got there,
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think it's important. I've been waiting for this day.
Good. Okay.
And when I think you have put together really good information, and the Agawam people and the people as a whole that you're going to tell us about, their spirits and their history is on this earth that they landed on. So it's important to understand that and talk about it.
Well, I'm just going to flow, I think. And
Yep.
I have an outline.
This is your day. You sit back and do it.
And you whatever you want to add. I mean, it's not my presentation. It's just stuff that I really loved. And then I'll just tell you, I'll just go through it and then blah, blah, blah. We'll add to it. We're talking about New England, colonial times, 1600s. Pilgrims showed up 1620. The Puritan showed up and then the peak migration was 1636 from England. And then that's when they were kind of the colonial group. Do you say colonists? Colonialists?
Colonists.
Colonists. Okay.
I mean, that's how I say it.
Colon on the brain. It's right.
Yeah.
Colonists.
You say colonists.
I always say colonists, and that doesn't sound right. Colonial colonists.
Yeah, they're colonists.
Okay, so that's my word for the day. I won't be able to say.
Or it could be the usurpers.
You're so mad at them.
Yeah.
Kitties are gone. Okay. So anyway, because there were trappers and their white man had put foot on the land for a long time before that. And the Spanish were doing similar things over on the west side and the south, like in Florida. It was happening.
And as we're learning more and more, the indigenous, the native people on North and South continents been on having thriving civilizations, sophisticated civilizations, communications for thousands of years. So
yes, and you had that map. Maybe we can throw. I'm sorry, there's one more cat.
How many cats are wandering into your room?
There's two. There's my normal cat who usually sits right here during the podcast, but we have Ruth's cat visiting, and so they don't know what they're doing.
That's not even the teenagers.
No, that's the kitties. Okay, so anyway, yes. No wheel is getting reinvented with the colonial people coming and deciding they're going to grow things on the land and hunt and find resources and build communities and create life. They're not doing anything that hasn't already been happening for as far back as 50,000 years. Is that crazy?
No, not. They're finding, especially like in Turkey and all these other places.
But for sure, 14,000 years. And these people have evolved and they created their own culture and their own groups and they broke off and they've been living. Life has been happening just fine on this continent for thousands of years. I'm getting to know the colonists, and they were flat paper doll or cut out people to me for so long. And then the more you research them and you hear their side of the story, just like women, you start wondering, well, there's another side to this, and it's being told. It's just, are our ears in the right place to hear it? So that's what we're going to try to do today, is kind of fill out the people that were already living there, and then with, of course, our hearts in the place of the women, because
Yep.
that's what we're doing.
Yep.
So I will just start with so New England, 1600s. There's lots of different tribes, and the sad thing is the more I tried to research. So you go to research Agawam, and you go. I gotta get my folder. You go to research the tribes around Boston or Springfield, Massachusetts, and those tribes have really lost. They're in the process of healing from having lost their language and their culture so much that I had to go north really to research the deep into the culture and the women and up to the Iroquois Nation, the Haudenosaunee
Mhm.
people, and which is a combination of the kind of in New York, the Mohawk, Cayuga, Seneca, and Onondaga tribes. Is kind of learn about them. And then they all are Algonquin speaking
Okay. As of the colonial times,
as
that's
of the
kind of
colonial times, yes, with their
okay.
own dialect. And sometimes the dialect would be so strong it was like a different language. But
Okay.
they are all coming from the same place. So a lot of their stories are the same. So we'll start with what I found. All of them were matrilineal tribes. So, like our podcast started, it's a uterine line, right? It's the egg.
Following the
So,
egg.
yeah, so it was the women were not only in charge, they weren't the sachems or the squaw sachems. There was no word for chief back then. Chief didn't come around till like the 1800s. The white introduction chief. Was sachem for a man, sachem, squaw sachem for a woman. But it was the women were the leaders, and they would choose these sachems. I'm going to use sachem for both to be in charge. So if you're appointed chief of this tribe, it's because the women appointed you that. And if you didn't live up to that, the women would remove you. If you weren't peaceful, you weren't allowed to be a warrior if you're a chief because they didn't want you to be bloodthirsty or war minded. They wanted you to be peace minded. So the
Mhm.
women were in charge of that. And the foundation of each clan or group were the hearth, so the fire. So a woman and her fire, and her husband and her children were a fire and a hearth. And then you lived in the long houses, and that fit more than one hearth. So the next hearth over
Oh.
could be your daughter and her family, or your mother and her family, or another woman and her family, and that was your second hearth. And,
Huh.
it was called an otianer. I couldn't find pronunciation, but basically it became a clan, and it's based on the woman. So the women's when men, boy, and this is just so, because I do have witchcraft on my mind too, of how Europe treated
Well, we
women.
all do.
Yeah, okay. Because in Europe, the way they attacked women and got to prosecute women was saying that they had flipped society. They had made the
Yes.
women in charge. And so in this culture, in the native, indigenous culture, if a man married a woman, they don't go and live with the man's family. They go and live with the woman's family, right? That's flipped. It's flipped that the women are the leaders of the tribe or the clan. Women were in charge of growing the food and working the fields and bringing in the harvest. The elderly were in charge of raising the children,
Oh,
and the men were in charge of hunting, and then also whatever the women assigned them to do. Go fight, go bring this treaty, go, decide this issue, and here's what we want you to, they weren't everybody had a role in the tribe. It wasn't I don't think it was an ego I don't think it was a power thing. I think it was just the way after thousands of years of doing this, they had figured out it works best The women are gonna have an opinion about everything anyway. Why don't we just put them in ch no, well, not the men, but it works best if the women are in charge
Mhm.
and the men do the things they're good at, and the
Mhm.
women know that and acknowledge that, and the elderly are wise and they know the traditions. Why don't we have them teach our children that so that continues on for generations? And so it's linear. And so as the hearth to hearth, the longhouse to longhouse to longhouse becomes a clan, men marry women and they go live with those clans. He stays loyal to his mom's clan, but he becomes part of his wife's clan. And so you have these societies not really based on territory. They're
Mhm.
based on lineage, the seed. They're based on family
Mhm.
and the mother's family. And clans are named after um, the mother, but then it's whoever the mother descended from. So if you're part of the
Oh,
wolf clan, because your mom's part of the wolf clan, that's who they spiritually and believe that they were evolved from that animal. So they
mhm.
take on the characteristics of that animal, which is interesting. Um, okay. And last time I skipped so many cool things, so I am gonna look at my notes a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. So la la la. So one of the other thing is that power. So women were also spiritual leaders. So they were the ones who you would go to for advice. They would do the rituals. They would prepare the ceremonies. Um, and they believed that, and I'm talking about the Haudenosaunee specifically now, but with the understanding that all these tribes have this matrilineal
Okay.
way of doing. And then I am going to assume also then when we start talking about spirituality that that crosses over too. So I'm making some assumptions, but I don't think I'm
The
making that.
word you just mentioned, the
Hot in
H
this hot oh, yes, thank
is
you. This is what Ted told me too. He's like, "You keep throwing out words thinking that I understand what you're saying, and, um, I don't know what you're saying." So, yeah,
yeah.
Haudenosaunee is the word for Iroquois Confederacy.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
the more appropriate word, I think, and I might be saying it wrong, but um it's the people up there. So in New York, the the Finger Lake regions, the Great Lake, over all the way over to they bump right up against our Massachusetts groups, which is good. I'm glad you said that because I need to actually touch on that first. So a lot of the tribes in our Massachusetts, Connecticut area that we're talking about, um, they get their tribe names. A lot of them are established tribes, but the tribes in the river region, the Connecticut Valley River
Mhm.
region, where Springfield, Massachusetts is, Deerfield, Windsor, they're not organized tribes. I think that's why it's so hard to find info on them. Right?
Well, and I'm glad you said that because I did want to, briefly acknowledge that, we are doing our best to pronounce, we're doing our best to relate the history. It would be far preferable if those people belonging to these tribes and clans and who have the ancestors could be sharing this. We acknowledge that.
For sure.
But and I I I love seeing I always kind of check and they are sharing their history. They are rebuilding it. When you come from an oral tradition, you've got to rebuild and study myths and try to figure out where those origins were, and they're doing it, and they're reclaiming their items that the colonists took and put in their museums and tried to interpret with their little signs at the museum, and we're learning a lot. um we that said, some people are from the earliest days of anthropology, um, people have been wanting to tell their story for them. And there are certain they have a right to privacy. They when a people have been conquered and violence against their whole culture and society, they are obviously very private. There are things, sacred things they don't want to share. So you and I are working off the knowledge that we are have been given, but we acknowledge that, what they choose to share and how is up to them, and we look forward to
for
that.
sure.
Okay, there we go.
And
There's
yeah,
my
and
PBS.
that's good. The full knowledge. This is why I think we had to do this. I think we're doing this again. I was so nervous that first time because we are treading on somebody else's sacred ground,
Right.
and
On
and
both sides.
both sides,
Yeah.
right? And we yeah, and and this is so sacred that yes, a tenderfoot is needed, and we're trying to have a tenderfoot on pronunciations and telling this story. And what really I felt like as I was researching this is and reading, like, I'll put this in the
Oh, yeah.
reading their books, and that I don't feel like it's something that is like a okay, well, the way they even thought about land, the way these tribes in this time period had lived their life regarding land was not the way these European people regarded land. And I think we can translate that even into the way we regard history, their history,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I think if my insecurity is that I'm gonna tell somebody else's amazing origin story, do I have a right to do that? It doesn't belong to me. It's not my origin story. I'm coming in thinking of that it's something I can steal. And the way they looked at land was, no, this is not something that can be sold or stolen
Hmm.
or like, what about the word possession? The word, I wrote it down, was not, um, they were there were boundaries and tribal boundaries and homelands and land that they felt they were in charge of taking care of and making sure it lasted. Every choice they made about land, they had to take into consideration seven generations. So every
Oh,
choice you're gonna make about moving a you know, changing a path of a stream or cultivating a slide of a hill, they had to consider and talk about and discuss how does this affect the next 7 generations.
wow.
So and I know I'm getting off so land was something they had at the moment and something they were in charge of making sure lasted through generations. Um, so I'm not saying I have a right to their history at all. I'm just saying that I feel like, um, if done properly and with love, I feel like these are stories that we can learn from and share and try to fill out this history from both sides. So,
I agree, and I think there's a responsibility there as historians and as curious researchers into the mysteries. It's important for us to understand all that really lives in history seems to be action, just who killed who.
right,
And by you, I think in a respectful way, you can learn about other people's spiritual lens that they're viewing the world through. And um, what, we check our sources really carefully. The lenses that we're trying to look through from an Agawam perspective are the ones we can source.
right.
If there's someone listening who
Ah, you just
is
my mind, right.
who has grandmothers living there on Agawam property in the 1600s, please, would love to talk to you and hear your stories. So we are doing
Distaffpodcast.com. Yes.
thisstaffpodcast.com.
At
Please contact us.
yes. Yeah, at gmail.com. I'll put
Yeah,
it
Because what you're saying, Sarah, it's important because what we are gonna discuss are the intersections between these 2 people, specifically the women, their spirituality, their political systems, their social systems, their language. It affect all of it. So we're trying to lay that foundation, right?
Yeah, let's do
Okay,
that.
I'm done talking.
No, that's you're so perfect. Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
Let's have let's pick a woman from Springfield. We'll stop picking on
Well,
Mary
no,
Burt.
don't change your
Well,
plan.
let's do that. Let's have her go walk in the woods, right? She's going to follow the wood cutting, and she turns a corner, and she's face to face with an Agawam woman, and there they are looking at each other. So now let's talk about this. We've talked about that Springfield woman. Now let's turn and look, and let's talk about nicely, we won't call her nicely
We'll
about
be kinder. I'm sure she wasn't lascivious.
right.
So, because
But
she was
let's talk
busy
about
leading.
yes, this leader woman who's looking at this colonial woman in the eye, and they are coming from different places. Or are they? Let's talk about it. Okay. Interesting. So yeah, land was something to be protected. The tribes in this river valley were not named after leaders or anything like that. They were named after the land.
Cool.
So the Pocumtuck were named for that means along the swift sandy river, and the Norwotuck it was a midway place on the river. These are all tribes. The Agawam are Springfield people. Are it's called low lying land. So these are the people that lived on low lying land. That's their name. Wouldn't that be cool to be named after maybe not cool, like, I don't know, planned community.
The trailer park by the railroad
Yes,
crossing. Or
HOA Sarah. Okay, Waranoka was the winding part of the river, and Sokoke were the place where
wow.
they spearfish. So that's you're coming from people that are so connected to the land, the names of their families and their tribes, if not named after the animal that they come from, they're named after the land that they live on. So they are living life, um, seeing land with different eyeballs. Like I talked about last time, it's the virtual reality. That woman, the Springfield woman, Mary Burt standing on the trail, is looking through life this way, and the Agawam woman is looking through life. She sees different a tree is something different, a hill is something different. The way you plant corn, the three sisters, the corn, beans, and squash, that's different. Just everything is seen differently. So and this is where I went off track. Then I start talking about wampum, but maybe I should stick with
Well, I interrupted you, but you were right at, you said that Haudenosaunee,
Haudenosaunee.
matrilineal,
Yes.
um, so then you started talking about the Connecticut Valley, so I feel like you're where
Okay.
you were.
What I wanted to add to this, the spiritual side, and then we'll get back into the wampum and then I'll tell the story and we'll get back to spiritual, and that's where you take over. Um, was that we had mentioned in a previous episode about the Morning Wars, so the Iroquois, but it's not just the Iroquois, it's all these groups, the Mohawks. Um, they would have the Morning Wars, and that's when they would go take prisoners, right? They would go out, seek replacements for people, and they took women and children mainly, but if you had lost a husband, they would go find captives, a man, someone to come take over and replenish that tribe. And it sounds when I first heard about it, I'm like, "Well, that's logistically, I guess, good. You have workforce, and
Yeah.
if you're sad about a child, maybe, I don't know, it's kinda
Mhm.
does it work that way? I'm not sure." So, reading more about their spirituality is that they're they believe every human has the inner strength and an inner power, and it's great, and it's strong, and it's worthy, and but it's only can do so much. The only way they, as a tribe and a nation, have strength is by more than one person, and then more than one person, and more than one person. The more together, their spiritual power comes in the group, the community. So when they actually lost people in wars or in their own people becoming captives, when their tribe was lessened or someone died just naturally, their actual spiritual power of that group and their
Oh,
community
wow.
was depleted.
Wow.
So either by they would have babies and try to replenish that way, but that was another so that was so their their one person's power was limited, combined with others, the power became stronger. So there's thumbs up. So it's called public power, which
Public.
is cool. Yeah. Um, and then we'll make sure I talked about everything.
I think you had mentioned about, coming from a base of peace. Are you
Yes. Okay,
but
let's
you
do that.
but I mean, no, but I mean, you do your way. I
Yeah,
just
that's
wanted to
great.
make sure.
Okay, yeah. So not only did they have this relationship with the land that is unique and different and like a partnership with it. It's not something they conquer or own or take over or dominate, have dominion over the land and the animals. They are in partnership with it. And that's why uh, that they were seeking peace. Peace was a huge part of their belief system before it was something that the white man was demanding of them, right?
Uh-huh.
It's an idea that they had embraced years before, and they still had wars and they had inner fighting. So, yes, let me get into the Great Law of Peace. Um, this is a story from the Haudenosaunee or the Iroquois Confederacy, and again, that's the 5 tribes, and you gotta get to my page, but I'll tell this right. It's the 5 tribes, the Onondagas, the Mohawks, the Cayuga, the Ononidas, and the Seneca. And I love the Cayugas because I always think of Cuyahoga, Cleveland,
Mhm.
different people.
We're partial.
Yes, they are. And, they were this is their origin story. This is the story of how they got to be how their belief system and their government even, the way they work and operate happened. And again, I do believe that this influenced the tribes in Massachusetts but, the great piece is there was a master of life, and I'll just tell this really quickly. There's a master of life who had promised these people that if they ever needed help, if they ever needed an ambassador, he would send someone. And and for them, they needed help when there was warring and inner fighting. So that started happening again amongst the Onondagas. This is the one tribe out of those 5. We start with the Onondagas. They were fighting, there was no peace. There was a man named Hiawatha who was part of that tribe who wanted to s he wandered from village to village within that tribe trying to preach peace, and he had a nemesis named I've been practicing these words, Ototaro, and he was evil, and he was wicked, he used black magic, he killed Hiawatha's wife and 7 children using spies and black it was just dark. And, Hiawatha gave up and he left. He went to other tribes and tried to start getting the Mohawks or anybody that would listen to him about peace, but there was just no peace to be had. So, a man named Daganowida, he grew up in the Huron Nation. He was raised by his mother, taught by his mother, taught about humankind, peace, just had been instilled by his mother. These so much so that people consider him a prophet or a
Oh,
man of his name actually means man the thinker, but a lot of
wow.
people will consider him the ambassador sent by the master of life. Okay,
Okay, okay.
so Daganowida meets, and he's preaching too, but he has stuttered speech. He can't speak very well. He's not eloquent, can't pronounce his words. Maybe he stammers, and yet he has a mystic soul. So he meets with Hiawatha. Hiawatha is very good at speaking, and but he's so depressed and sad, and he's got this Ototaro guy
Hmm.
killing all his people, you know? So they meet together and they start spreading the message of peace through the Mohawks, the Cayugas, the Senecas, maybe the Senecas, and the Onondagas. And finally, the Mohawks say, "Fine, we'll join you, but only if you can get rid of that Ototaro. He's that Onondaga guy who's like just trouble. If you can take care of him, we will come and join. We're peace. We're all for it. We'll do it. We'll join you in a peaceful way." So Daganoweda and Hiawatha go to the women, and this story varies a little by who you're reading. I am getting this version I'm getting from this book, and I'll put it in the notes. It's
So
Our
this is an
Way.
origin story that's accepted by other tribes as well, or is this or is this based on how is this like thousands of years ago
See,
or
they won't put a timeline on it,
okay, that's fine.
but it's interesting. It depends on because I read Donald Grind's version of it in this book put together by Julie Cajune. It's called Our Way, A Parallel History. There's the story is told twice in this book, one on the spiritual level and one on a foundation for democracy level,
Oh, interesting.
kind of as
Okay.
forefathers were inspired by this.
Oh, okay.
And
They
neither of them
stole
were
that
really
too.
good. Yeah, and then I watched, like, every YouTube video I could get because I was trying to get the pronunciations right,
Yeah.
and they won't really some tell it as an actual history that maybe happened in the 1500s, 1400s. Some don't give you any time. Some treat it more as a mystical, a spiritual. Yeah,
That works on both levels. So that
yeah.
that works.
So
All right.
I don't know for sure, but I guess when I'm telling you
Because the
this
truth in the story is
is
timeless.
what matters.
Yes.
Yeah, for
Okay, sorry.
sure. But that's good because as I was reading and watching it, I kept getting caught up on that, and finally I had to be like, "Whatever,
Mhm.
this is a great story, and it has actual fruits." Like, there
Mhm.
is
That's
actually
right.
right. So,
That's a great point.
so that's when I'm but that's totally my brain went there too, because that would be cool to know. Um So Hiawatha and Daganoweda get together. They go to the women. They ask, "How can we defeat Ototaro?" The women teach them a song, and they say, "As you approach him in the swamps, sing this song." And
Mm,
so they go. Hiawatha and Daganoweda go to Ototaro in the swamp, and they approach him slowly, singing this song. Again, that's the version I read here. Um, and as they're approaching him, Ototaro's hands, they were shaped like turtle claws, they become
mhm.
human form, his body untwists and he straightens up. Hiawatha combs the snakes out of his hair. Hiawatha, translated loosely, means combing, he who combs or combing hair. Combs the snakes out of the hair, and he becomes a man. And he agrees, yeah, he's converted or whatever, he's transformed. And they put him as the fire keeper over the Onondaga Confederacy. So these
Wow.
tribes join and they organize, and they form this council. And the way this council is formed is it's democracy. So it started with 4 tribes. So you had 2 tribes, 2 tribes. If an issue came up, the 2 tribes would discuss it. Leaders appointed by women, the leaders would discuss these issues. Um, and then they would come to an agreement, then the other 2 tribes would discuss it. If they all came to the same agreement, then they would bring in the 5th tribe to agree with it,
Hmm.
and then and only then did that happen. So if you're talking
Wow.
about going to war, if you're talking about, um, I don't know, what
Mm,
crop to plant, where to move your community in the just it was the beginning for the first, they will say, democracy
hmm.
on this land, which is cool. Another thing that they spelled out all the procedure, and the thing that I'm just was struck by is that part of this Ototaro was the fire keeper. There's a way to keep the fire. When you have to clean the fire out, there's someone in charge of taking the fire, moving it to the side, cleaning it out, putting the fire back. They don't let the fire out. That's someone's job. Another person's job during this council is if a creeping or crawling thing
Mm.
comes into the longhouse or the council and is moving towards the fire, someone's specific job. And again, I didn't look at it. I don't know if it's with a seagull feather or with a staff or a stick, but someone's job is to gently m turn the creature around and point it back outside. That was written into policy of what to
Wow.
do, which I just think is, again, it's in Pynchon's meeting house, nobody has a job of what to do when a spider crawls in
Yeah.
or a creeping that just they would s I assume they would smush it or, just the way of thinking and how they thought of everything, and everything is spiritual, everything has meaning, every place they go, the land they're seeing, everything is seen with different eyes. There's legend in everything. Everything is symbolic. Can you imagine? I mean, I've tried to get into spirituality where you're supposed to eat the apple in every bite,
Yeah.
taste the apple, and which is great and lovely, but it's really hard to do. And I am assuming this is how they lived, right?
Well, and that goes with the idea of the common consciousness or community or responsibility, even your actions, you're going to notice details. You're gonna know that you're not the most important one. You're not the guy that's gonna squash the bug. You're gonna notice the bug. This is your job, and you're going to usher them to safety or a way out where they belong. They don't belong in that
Right.
particular space. And
Right.
I love the attention to detail in, um through those goggles. I like sitting in those goggles for a while and
Yeah.
thinking about that.
Yeah. Because um one of the things, Dagan Nowita was a prophet, and one of the things when you see the Iroquois Confederacy or the Haudenosaunee, it's, the tree that I forgot to tell about, but I'm gonna tell about it, and then the different tribes. And his vision was he had a dream, it was the giant evergreen, and the evergreen was being fed by 3 principles, and it's a stable mind, a healthy body, with peace and strength. Stable mind, a healthy body, with peace, humane conduct through speech were required for equity and justice, and then 3, physical strength and civil authority would reinforce the power of the clan. So they're talking about together, you have order, from yourself, you have a stable mind, a healthy body, you're peaceful. Second is you have to have humane conduct, thought and speech to have equity and justice. It's not just something granted to you, right? That's why I
Mm,
think they do go to war and they're not Gandhi, right? They're not laying down. They do know what justice is and they do know
mhm.
they will do that. Um, but it's with the foundation of humane conduct and thought and speech first, right?
And you had mentioned earlier that they start with peace. Like, they
Yes.
start with peace, and from that comes equity and justice. And in that topsy-turvy world, the English seem like they're starting with equity and justice in order to
Mhm.
have peace, so
Yeah, peace is a byproduct of a good orderly community and a profitable business and,
it's nice if
and
you have it.
right. Yeah, good work if you can get it.
Yeah.
Here, they're starting with it because they are coming from, like the story says, they didn't come from peace. They created peace,
Oh,
right? So
yeah.
they're not I don't think they feel like they're better than anyone or more. They just found peace. They got to do this a lot longer. They've
Mhm.
been on this land basically, I don't know, I wouldn't even say that because I don't know, but they were on that land for a long time, able to experiment and navigate through different cultures and societies and traumas and trials, and they came to the place of starting with peace. And this tree, so those are the 3 principles that feed the tree. There's 4 directions that come out, and those are the 4 corners of the earth. Underneath the tree, and again, if say this is symbolic, say this is a real thing that happened, they did bury their weapons under the tree. Legend says that there was a river under the tree that washed these weapons away so they could never be unburied. And in his vision, he saw um, snow laying under a carpet of snow laying under the tree. And this carpet was protection for all who accept this peace. And he didn't just see it for his people, he saw it stretching out across the whole world. This was
Mm,
something they wanted for the whole world. So it
mhm.
wasn't, you know, they weren't, didn't have a monopoly on peace. It wasn't something they felt. It was in his Daganowaida's dream and vision, and the symbol they have on their flag to this day is this
Oh,
evergreen tree, and then the links to each square is the tribe.
wow.
And um for this peace, welcome to all. It's for the earth if you accept it, and you get the protection of this snowy blanket.
Huh.
So all right, I'm going to segue that into, I hope that's every, oh, and then the way that Daganoweda, after this was settled, Ototaro was in charge of the firekeeper. He was the new Sachem, kind of. Daganoweda got into a canoe, and he rowed away into the mist on Lake Onondaga and was never seen again. And
Wow.
then shortly after, Hiawatha also, some say he headed and started traveling the world on foot or whatever to spread the message. Others say that they saw him get into a canoe and sail off into the darkness on Lake Champlain. So that's kind of the end of
I
those 2
I
amazing people.
and I love the way, like you were saying, their story is so you can visualize the world they're in because there are a lot of swamps. It is foggy. The river, you do disappear into the mist. You
Mhm.
hear, you know, lots of sources talk about don't go in the swamp or the mist rose over, and so it's so symbolic of going into a mystery, going into the unknown, but it wasn't scary for them, right? They
No,
were
it's spiritual.
travelers. They were
Yeah,
travelers.
it's spiritual. Yeah. Um, okay, so we'll go, so I have 2 more things to talk, sorry.
No,
This is such
please
a
share
fun
us.
topic too, but
I am loving this. So
okay.
I'm just biting my tongue. I'm being careful and quiet.
Well, okay, so I'm gonna talk about wampum,
Oh,
and then I'm gonna get back into the spiritual, my one last thing on the spiritual side, and then we get to start weaving these together, right? So I'm excited to hear what you have to say. So, wampum. Speaking of the Onondaga, Haudenosaunee, the Iroquois Confederacy flag. I'll put it up here.
okay.
The the way I saw it was on wampum, and it is. So I had to read. I started reading about wampum, also going back learning about the way they thought about land. Um, we all the research I've been doing on our colonial people, wampum was a commodity, a currency, right? It's something that we were traded. It's seashells that you get on the Atlantic coast. The shells are whelk shells and quahog shells, kind of black and white shells, and they take the shells and they create like these linear tubes. They string them on, put them on string, and then I always saw it, and the way you read about it in all these histories, it's used for currency. Um, Not so. So before white man, wampum it has value, but the value is different. The value is communication. The value is a
Hmm.
way to write history. The value was a way to document, did I ever say that? Conversation. So it was it originally, well, I don't know if originally, but one of the ways it was used, and just to paint a picture, is there were a lot of blood killing. What's the word? Family. If someone kills your brother and you wanna go back and kill their
Oh,
brother.
vengeance,
Yes.
right? Or
Right.
rivalries.
Can't remember. Anyway, there was a lot of that. So if your brother got killed by some family, you got to go back and kill their brother or their
Right,
woman.
yes.
Right. So they used wampum as a way to stop that blood flow. So instead, they put a value on that blood, and you got to have that. So a man was 20 wampum, a woman was 30 wampum, and then that settled the dispute between the families because wampum was used if you were the sachem of a tribe and you wanted to go make peace or war with another tribe far, far away. I mean, we're talking about wampum could spread from here to from Massachusetts to Mississippi tribes and tribes over to the west. You would string wampum a message, and your messenger would bring that wampum to that tribe, and that would be validate that you're truly a legitimate ambassador. You could show your wampum. It was a belt. You could show the wampum, and they could see, yes, you're legitimate. Okay, I'll listen to what you have to say. Or if there were negotiations between two tribes, the wampum was made with the different patterns. So even
Mm,
though they didn't really know everybody's language or dialect, everybody understood the symbols on wampum. So you could
wow.
communicate across all the land with wampum the
So
way
you're saying they would alternate colors or something on the
they could.
strings, or
Mhm, and
how?
sometimes, yeah, you could make patterns out of it because it's several strings, and then out of each, black or white, and you could make different colors with them too. I'm sure they knew how to dye them. But also the string itself, a red string could mean war. So if some messenger was
Really?
coming to you with wampum and the strings were dyed red, it wasn't a great message, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Mhm, and they could restring it with the white with take the red out and put the white in as a sign that no more war, you know.
Wow.
So it was, it and after, like I was saying, after the negotiations, they would make a wampum to document the things they had talked about. So this is why when the colonial men came,
Oh my
first of all,
god.
they went into these villages and didn't they thought they were seeking out the leader. They looked right past the women and found the man and went up to the man and started talking to the man. I'm sure the man's, like, looking at the women, they're like, "Well, we'll talk about it after," or
Yeah.
whatever, you
Yeah.
know? And, then after, um and so they were always negotiating with the wrong person. That's how you got into a lot of big
Wow.
problems with stealing the land because actual people that weren't in authority to barter or negotiate or do anything were selling. Eventually, rival tribes caught on and they started selling each other's land. But anyway, um, the so when the colonial people started coming with their papers, like, "Here's a paper and
Yeah.
sign this, and now we get the river, and you're gonna move over to the 2 hillsides over, and we're gonna" the the tribes people would sign it, you know, the best they could and draw. We have the one where it was the women in the, Springfield sh deed that you have the I can put it up too. That's a canoe,
Wow.
corn, that's a fish, that might be corn too.
Are these women signing
Some of
it?
these are women, yeah, that signed this. And, but anyway, so the colonial people would walk away thinking, "We got the paper, we got the paper." And the tribes, the indigenous people were like, What? What's with the talking papers?" Like,
Yeah.
that they kinda thought it was wampum, like, "Okay, you documented what we talked about, but now you're coming back and waving this in my face because you have the land? Like, what? You and your talking papers," you know, like
Yeah, I mean, it's almost how you can see, the colonists would they basically treated them like macaroni necklaces from preschool,
Mhm,
like, "Oh, we're gonna give you a bunch of these wampums,
mhm.
But who knows what the message was on it, like when they
No.
received it, "Oh, I need more toilet paper, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
It's just so how do
They
you
took
even
some Oh, go ahead.
can I ask a question about
Yes,
the
I hope
chief?
I can
So you're
answer.
talking about these negotiations and the colonial only passing by the women in power, like not even reading the room at all, and then talking to the chief. What powers did the chief have? He was just a communicator, right? Did he have
Yeah,
to go back to them and talk about it, or
he was appointed by them. Chiefs were appointed by the women leaders, and he had to I wrote it down, the what in order to be a chief, you have to hold on, let's take me 1 minute. Chiefs had to be honest and kind-hearted, they had to think clearly, they had to have knowledge of ceremonies, they had to be loyal to their family, and they had to uphold the great law, which is, the story we just told, um, and which are the 3 the 3
the pillars,
principles,
principles
and
of yeah.
they had to represent well the tribe. So they did. I could see why I guess colonial people maybe would think because they were representatives they were appointed by the women to go speak on behalf of tribes. So they do represent the tribe. So if they walk into Springfield and he's sitting down to negotiate with you, it's probably really hard through hand signals and things to say, woman back there, she make all,
Yeah.
sorry, like what the
Yeah.
he's making that. So then they would go back, tell the women would tell them, yes, no. There's the story I told you of that I love. So the chief had to be peaceful, but so the other only way young men or whatever in these nations could evolve was basically usually through war or something heroic or
Mm.
really awesome they did, and that was usually in battle. And so you could, take a hatchet and throw it into the war pole in
Hmm.
the village and start doing a dance, and, um, as you were recruiting other people, they would come to you and they would join in the dance, and eventually you'd have 20 guys who are
Hmm.
on your side, they wanna go do this battle. You could train, you could get ready, and then, when it was time to go off to war, the real say was the women, because you can't go off to battle or war without your moccasins and your food, and the food was
Cute.
cornmeal with honey or syrup, and that's so you had to go you could do all your dance and get ready for war, and then go to the women and be like, "Okay, we're off," and they'd be like, "This is a dumb war," you know, "No," or, "No, you're not ready for war." The final word was the women.
So which would be very smart. Like they would probably sit back, watch the hatchet go in, and a guy dancing all by himself. She's like thinking, how many moccasins am I going to need for this? And you could tell the dynamics of this warrior group that had come together basically because they felt called or whatever.
Yeah, or here's their chant
Oh, well,
or
they didn't
whatever.
dance well together and da da da. You could pretty well assess your troops and then you had a final
Mhm.
decision. So, how sad for them if
But I
they,
think respected, they'd probably be like, "Alright, try
yeah,
again next week," or, or "I'll work on my" Yeah, you're like you said, they
yeah,
probably were watching them dance and train and seeing who you're right. So wise, so smart.
so smart because like watching Survivor and like, who's the guy that's going to rip off his clothes and walk around naked? We don't want
Right,
him on the battle.
right.
So give it some time and
Yeah,
what are his skills and where are you going and how
right, or
much
I
food
know
do I need to give you and
yes, or he's not a very good hunter, or he's a great hunter and we actually need
mhm,
him to stay here and be whatever. It was yeah, so your in answer to your question, they were representatives, but they were not the indecisive decision makers. And if they did not do one of if the chiefs or sachems didn't live up to any of those requirements, the women would just you'd get fired from being the sachem and you would somebody else would take
Okay.
your place.
And, it isn't it's an acknowledgement kind of that same kind of wisdom of, the chief in that world where there's warriors and stuff, the women he's the best guide if you have to travel, if you have to go to unknown peoples, if you have to get the canoe down there, if
Yes.
he's the best representative because it's a strength thing. And they're acknowledging, I don't have the strength to combat someone if I need to, but I can
Yeah.
sit back here and plan and acknowledge and wait. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
neat how everyone has their their strengths used.
They get to live to their best potential,
Yeah.
right? Nobody's sitting there thinking, "I could do better." No woman is thinking, "Ugh, the man would just ask me, I could tell them," Or and no
Yeah.
man is saying, "Oh, if that woman would stop trying to lift that canoe, I could just lift it."
Yeah.
Or and the elderly people aren't thinking, "Man, they raised their kids
Yeah,
crap."
it's true. It's their fault again.
Right. So they're the ones, right? So I think
Huh.
it's very cool.
Wow,
Um,
that's great information. I love
yeah,
that.
so that's the wampum. So then we'll just end. I feel like we got
We go where hey, I'm not ready to do the spirituality till
oh,
next
okay.
week. So we just go as long
Oh,
as we
let's just
want.
go.
Because
Okay, here we go.
my thought was this is where we're gonna hang, and then
Okay.
I'll go deeper into the other stuff.
Okay, okay, good. 'Cause now I just thought of one other thing.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
don't want you to be rushed because this is fascinating.
okay. Um, okay, so land was passed down through the women, we know that. So not only is
Mm,
your lineage and your loyalties and your tribe name passed through the women, land was also passed through the women. So if when the, um, leader of the tribe died, her daughter, the oldest daughter, took over,
okay.
and then any land that they had. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about oh, I forgot what I was gonna do.
Sorry, I messed
No, you're
with the
doing
mojo.
thank you, you're it's excellent. Um, just some other things I said, sexual relationships, you was, had autonomy.
Hmm,
Divorces were easy to get. It wasn't like a big moral problem. There was loyalty, absolutely, but, there were no lascivious women because there's there wasn't that label, right?
right. I mean, did they believe in sin or good or evil or, um
They believed in going against those principles,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
And that you could make what you want out of those. The loyalty to family, is that being loyal to your wife? Is that loyal to your kids? Loyal to your tribe? Loyal to the land? You could in a sense, maybe the word they're what makes something moral is different than what
Mhm.
the Europeans would say, but I'm sure, yeah, they had laws and rules and values and things. Um, okay. So
Can I ask, do
I
we know, if they married, if that was a concept for them?
Yes, they did. Yes,
Okay.
for sure. Um, and I can say this for certainty. It's not something I actually researched, but I did research a little bit on that. So that's why I know you could divorce or marry kind of fluidly or as needed. And
Okay.
then also I know by reading the captive story of Eunice Williams, not her she never wrote a story, but reading about it, she was captured as when she was 8 years old from Deerfield during the massacre. She was taken as an 8-year-old with her father and their brothers and her mom. Her mom was killed on that journey. Her father was taken down one river, her brothers were taken down another river, and she was taken down another river, and she ended up in
Interesting.
the Mohawk tribe and was adopted in because now we know what that means. That was
Mhm.
the morning war or and once that happens, it's very hard to get those prisoners back from the Mohawks or the Haudenosaunee because it was a spiritual thing at that point. They were
Okay.
not bargaining chips or negotiations. It was you were trying to take their spiritual power away when you tried to get these captives back.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so she ended up and this is long story, she ended up loving it.
That's what we're here for, long
Okay.
story.
Okay, so she ended up loving it, many, many times her father or representatives of her father, even the governor of Quebec, the Jesuit priests, the Canadian, the enemies of the English were working with the English to try to get this little girl back.
Mm.
By the time they made any real strong contact with her, she was 15 and she was married to this guy. So they describe the scene. I think it's they didn't go to their village. She came with her husband to wherever the representatives were. So maybe a room, a building, a hotel in the city, somewhere, I don't know. And she walks in and she sees her dad there and she doesn't say anything to him, nothing. And she's in the full Mohawk clothing, her hair is they're assuming her hair would have been greased back because they used bear grease to grease the
Mm.
hair back into a braid. She's in all the outfit. She's with this handsome husband who's standing next to her, and they're trying to tell her, "You're not only are you're English, you're Christian, you're not Catholic, you're not Mohawk," just kinda telling her, like, all the reasons. They think she understands. There is an interpreter there. She says
Mm.
nothing, and her husband speaks up for her and looks at the dad and says, "She saw how you treated her mother,
What?
and if you had done differently with your wife, she would feel better. She would come visit you. But she saw how you treated your wife. Something she saw you the wording is, she saw basically what happened with her mother, and she has no desire to come back or she's done with you, basically. She's part of our people now."
Wow.
And she left with her haughty husband and went back, and Eunice Williams,
Wow,
you know
that I love that for a lot of reasons, but but it implies that she had been free to go back all along.
Oh, she did. Many, many delegations up until that time when she was from 8 years old to 15, people were going and negotiating and money and wampum and all, and they were like, "We're not trading
And
her
I
back."
love how you're saying they were trying to call her by her signifiers or by her
Yes.
identity, remind her, you know,
"You're Eunice."
"You're this, you're that," and then it's so the reason is so more personal than a political or a spiritual system, or it's about the family, which makes
Mhm,
sense with what you were saying about the hearth and the family is unity is the basis of their culture. And so she cut through all that other stuff, the Christianity overlaid with the you're this and that, and who she was as a girl that didn't want to be treated that way.
yeah.
And
They went back to her mother, of course it went back to her mother. She's in a culture based on
yes,
mothers.
you're right.
Of
You're
course.
right. How offensive would that be if your little husband that can't even dance the warrior dance is beating you up or whatever? You know,
Yeah.
and we know from the Pynchon records and from what the little we've talked about in Springfield and the women there it was a physical, violent they were the one lady that called her husband a toad and, um, it wasn't a great place for women in
No.
general, or it was a different place. It was a
Rel
different lens.
Yeah, relatively speaking, and we know women's power. We are resilient. We can bloom wherever we're planted in any
Yeah,
society. We know how to get around it all.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
but but, if you've known both, here's the little
Right,
girl that knew both,
right.
saw her mom, she and then saw this other option and chose this other option, and I just love that her husband, he's not gonna speak for the probably had just gotten to the point that she had decided she was not going to speak. These are not people she's going to be
Well,
speaking
she
with.
knew her voice did not matter
Right,
in their tribe,
right,
so
and
why bother?
the way it's written is that he wasn't intending really to speak either, he finally just said, like, "This isn't gonna work. This is why, and
Wow.
don't just stop," you know?
Yeah.
So, yes, they get married. That's how I
What a great story, Sarah. Thank you for
Yes.
reading
Well,
that.
thanks for asking. I wasn't even thinking of that story, but yes.
And of course, you had mentioned the captivity narratives that I'm sure we'll get to sometime if that there are two sides to it. Different people went in and had different
Oh, for
experiences on
sure.
both sides. But you brought up a woman who really could look through both lenses. That's what's so valuable about that story.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that. And I
And
also like to think about the first time the chief is told to go over to Springfield and talk to the people. And he must have thought the women were just weird fools, idiots. Why are the women
Mhm.
so quiet? Why are they, not greeting us? Or, I mean, just so weird.
Yeah. It's, I also think of that court case where the man had hit, Agawam's wife with a stick and how it was, I guess, a little stick, it was on her deer skin, so the guy, he's saying it didn't even hurt, but just you would hit a, like, I don't know, now I'm making assumptions about things I don't really know either side, but just yeah, you picture the man coming into Springfield and
Yeah,
did he
the chaos.
yeah. Okay, so
Okay, thank you for that.
I love this because let's talk about Eunice's world a little bit and where she's at
Oh, that would be awesome.
a little bit. I mean, I'm gonna get into this book that you gave me,
Mhm.
and if it's okay, we'll go through the, Allegiance of Gratitude,
Yes.
and, um because this brings it to modern day too. This
Okay.
is a woman walks among us. She wrote this beautiful book. She's telling of her experience. She lives over in New York. She's in the hot she's her farm is in the ancestral homelands of the Onondaga tribe. She's herself, I think, Cayuga, but maybe I'm wrong. Um So her farm, she sees the school bus drop off these Iroquois children every day, pick them up in the morning, drop them off in the afternoon, school bus full of Iroquois children, and she starts talking about in her book about what they do every Monday and Friday, and it's this allegiance of gratitude, and she likens it to the closest thing relatable would be the Pledge of Allegiance for, the
Okay.
what we did as children. And it goes back, and in my mind, I keep coming back to the Great Peace story, and then I also go back to what it would have been like to walk
Mm.
through the land, the relationship you have with this land, the animal, the wind, which it's in all of us. I think every person can have had moments relating to this, and what they've done is they've taken these moments and put them in words, and then another step, they taught these words through generations, and then the most important step is they taught it to their children, and they're
Mm.
teaching their children to recite this, right, to become part of them. It's long, she says, she describes, like, the 3rd graders in the back row giggling or kinda nudging each other as they are saying this, but, here it is, and I'm gonna read a little bit about it. It's, It's I'll read the first paragraph, and it is paragraphs and paragraphs. Each topic is a paragraph. It says, "Today we have gathered, and when we look upon the faces around us, we see that the cycle of life continued." So picture a bunch of elementary school kids up on stage saying this out
And
to
you're saying they do this every day or
they
every
said
week?
every Monday and Friday,
Wow,
I think.
okay. Open and close their week.
Yeah,
Okay.
I hope that's right. Maybe it was every Thursday. I don't know. Once at least once a week. Um, we have been given the duty to live in balance and harmony with each other and all living things. So now let us bring our minds together as one as we give greetings and thanks to each other as people. Now our minds are one. So after all these paragraphs, they're going to always finish it with now our minds are one. Not amen. That's kind of how they end it. So they begin with, we are thankful for Mother Earth, and she gives us everything that we need for life. And they say now, and there's more, but now our minds are one. They thank the waters of the world for quenching our thirst, providing strength and nurturing for life and all beings. They thank the fish of the water. They thank the vast fields of plant life. They thank the berries. They thank the food plants, and they thank the medicine herbs of the world. So very specific. Just picture
Yeah.
walking. If you went on a walk, that woman that's face to face with our Springfield, when she turns and walks back to her village, here's what I like to think this is her lens, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
Um, So the medicine plants, with one mind, we send thanksgiving, love, and respect to the medicines and the keepers of the medicines. And now our minds are one. Standing around us all, we see the trees. The earth has many families of trees who have their own instructions and uses. Some provide shelter and shade, others fruit and beauty, and many useful gifts. She goes on to talk about how it's a symbol of peace and strength. And now our minds are one. We gather our minds together to send our greetings and thanks to all the beautiful animal life who walk among us, and the birds that move and fly above our heads, the creator that gave them beautiful songs. I mean, come on. It's just so cool.
I know.
To all the birds, from the smallest to the largest, we send our joyful greetings and thanks. And now our minds are one. We are thankful for the powers we know as the four winds. We hear the voices in the moving air as they refresh us and purify the air we breathe. They help bring the change of seasons. Um, from the four directions they come, bringing us messages and giving us strength. And now our minds are one. Now we turn to the west, where our grandfathers, the thunder beings, live. We bring our minds together as one to send greetings and thanks to our grandfathers, the thunderers. And then they thank the eldest brother, the sun, the grandmother, the moon, who lights the nighttime sky. She is the leader of women all over the world, and she governs. See, isn't that amazing? This moon. She's the leader of women all over the world, and she governs the movement of the
Big.
ocean tides, right? The
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Uh-huh. I'm going to read the whole paragraph about the moon.
Please do, and just take your time. We've got nothing but time, it's a podcast.
I
Joe
know.
Rogan goes for, like,
I
4 hours.
That's right. Okay. By her changing face, see, okay, I'm getting my witchy girl into this.
Yep.
She's talking about how did they know that it's the whole world? Okay. By
I
her
know.
changing face, we measure time, and it is the moon who watches over the arrival of children here on Earth. Let us gather our thanks for Grandmother Moon together in a pile, layer upon layer of gratitude, and then joyfully fling that pile of thanks high into the night sky that she will know. With one mind, we send greetings and thanks to our grandmother, the moon. Interesting. I wonder if, interesting. That's giving instructions on how to say thank you to the moon.
Yes. Read that again. How is it?
Um,
They offer instructions too.
Yeah.
Like a good mother would tell you
Right,
what
how to do
things
it.
mean, but also how to do it.
Yeah, and the why. They're giving you the
And
why,
why?
how,
Yeah.
and the what. Okay, so let us gather our thanks for Grandmother Moon together in a pile, layer upon layer of gratitude, then joyfully fling that pile of thanks high into the night sky that she will know. Do you think they actually did that? Like
I
there was a ceremony or something?
I mean, it possibly, and yeah, because your physicals connect to your spiritual, and I'm just picturing myself taking a big thing of beautiful dry leaves in the forest and flinging that feeling of,
Yeah,
opening up and offering thanks and
yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome. Okay, we give thanks to the stars who are spread across the sky like jewelry. We see them at night, helping the moon to light the darkness and bringing dew to the gardens and growing things. When we travel at night, they guide us home, and now our minds are one. We gather our minds to greet and thank the enlightened teachers who have come to help throughout the ages. And then we turn our thoughts to the Creator or the Great Spirit and send greetings and thanks for all the gifts of creation. For all the love that is still around us, we gather our minds together as one. Everything we need to live a good life is here on Mother Earth. I just love it. And imagine coming she's not saying something new from this. This is something that these people had then too. This is in their toolbox or this is their frame of
mhm,
mind and thinking.
mhm,
And like we talked about last time, just how what the what if of it all, right? What if?
right,
What if this was the predominant narrative, right?
right,
Or what was this the adopted if this was the adopted religion?
right. And what if for a minute in that room the colonial women could talk to these wise
Yes.
Agawam women and come to understand, like, what would happen in that room? What if they were the decision makers? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Obadiah Miller's wife, maybe she's not in the room. But you wonder what
Maybe,
they would discuss, like,
but
what was
they
important? Like, how many moccasins do you have? And,
yes. You
you
know, they
know
would talk about the nitty-gritty day to day because
Yeah,
that's even for us, I mean, that's just a truth.
right,
Um, making a white bean chili for my family is a spiritual if I put my thought into it and my heart
right.
into it, it is a spiritual the nitty-gritty becomes spiritual, and
Yes, the layering of thanks, and then you
yeah,
throw it in the yeah, it
you're
is. I mean, that's one of the things I love about that. I'll
yeah.
cut that part out.
No,
But
I
yeah.
love it. The layering, yeah, the layering
But yeah,
because, like
that's like when you're cooking, and I love the magical realism of the, um, Mexican communities, and, that if you're angry, your food's gonna go through right and fuse to those people. That's I will put it in the sources, that book. I can't remember the title right
oh, is
now.
it like water for chocolate? Well, it's
It's
one of them.
Milagro
Oh,
Beanfield
the
Wars.
Milagro King's Lover.
Is
King's
that what it is?
Barbara is it Barbara King's
Oh, but
Milagro
it's not
Beanfield?
it's
And she
yeah,
wrote Like Water for Chocolate, right? No, that's
I don't remember. There's several, I guess it's a myth, kind of a myth, but the idea of yeah.
keep it.
I mean, and witches.
I was just gonna say kitchen witches. Yeah.
When I'm not claiming anything, but I do like to forage, and I do
Mhm.
like to
You're an excellent
put
forager.
things in mugs and drink them, and when you're doing that, you have an intention, like, "Oh, so and so's anxious and worried and maybe won't sleep, so I'm gonna
Yes.
intentionally bring these things into this cup and create something because I'm thinking about them,"
Yeah.
and that's good medicine. But I feel like that's what these little kids standing at the school bus, they're not reminded of any kind of political system. They're reminded how to connect to that one spirit
Mhm.
or reminding of their place.
And the Mother Earth they're on and what
Yeah.
yeah.
And there was a line in there you said, um, oh, what was it? You maybe you can remember. It was thankful for this what is left of this place or thankful for this place.
Waters of the earth, medicine herbs, standing the trees. Is it about Mother Earth?
It's at the very end and it says we are thankful for
Everything we need to live a good life is here on earth. For all the love that is still around us,
still
we
around.
gather our minds together as one and send our choicest words of greetings. Was that it?
Yes, because how comforting that to put yourself with that woman standing looking at our colonial lady, the Agawam woman. Look at what she's lost. Like look at
Yeah.
and so to remember in your mind, you know, this mother earth is I'm supposed to be here and for what's left we're grateful and I don't
Yeah.
know,
If
coming to
that was
terms with that.
a message that could have come across the other direction,
Yeah,
that
because
it
because that Mary Parsons staring back at her has lost a lot too,
Mhm,
and that would be a comfort. Like
mhm,
you belong, you're supposed to be on this planet. You don't need to go to Mars. You don't need anything more than that, you know.
right. What a message too, because these tribes in this area were not nomadic, so they didn't journey and travel. They where they were is where they lived and where they thrived and where they and standing facing a woman that had just crossed an ocean, probably crossed several some of them crossed
Yeah.
continents and then an ocean,
Yeah.
and then a land, uh, from the ocean into the woods, like, travel was all this woman had been doing, this colonial woman was doing, as leaving and, not feeling like wherever she was the right place, or that she
Mhm.
could make a life in the right place, hoping maybe at this point, maybe Springfield was that for them, that they are in a place now they could make a life, but, and I don't wanna end on this or anything, but I do wanna just mention, yes, this would have been we wondered the what if the message had gone the other way. What we do know is what did happen, and the message was forced on them from the other direction. Christianity, the missionary effort, the praying towns that started happening, and one of the ways that the missionaries were taught to kind of get control over these villages or these clans was to, again, flip
Mhm.
flip it. So, they put the indigenous women in tight or in the scratchy colonial dress. They took away their leadership positions, they took away their spiritual leadership. They taught the men to not go to women for answers. They, put the women in kitchens and they got them out of the fields, got them out of the cultivation. They put the elderly in the elderly place. They had the women's over the children. They put the men in leadership positions, and it was just, and it was intentionally done to a point, and just to try to a way to rattle and undo this thing that had been done for centuries. And so, um, the one thing that did stick, because I did read that article last time. I'm not going to read. I don't want to. I'll put it in the show
You
notes.
do whatever you wanna do.
It's an interesting article. Has a apologetic bent on the missionary effort with the colonial indigenous
Okay.
people. But even the writer, who is, I'll say it, Jason Eden, um, does kinda come to the conclusion that as much as the Christian effort in these indigenous tribes, it did people they were converted, they took on, excuse me, Christian names. It did kinda work obviously, we are a Christian founded nation now, but, um, the one thing that the give and take, there wasn't much give and take, but the one thing that the colonial missionaries and even Puritan leaders and reverends and preachers did have to give a little bit of give on was the honor of women, the way that these
Mm,
indigenous people honored their women. That was they tried, they put them in the kitchen, they took and that didn't quite work because even, they call them Indian Christian members still went to women for spiritual advice,
mhm,
and the Reverend Cotton had to change his sermon to be more instead of, um, some quoting scriptures would talk about brotherhood or man, he would put brotherhood, womanhood, man and women. He
how
started making it
interesting.
a little bit more both inclusive on gender, and also the one thing that always stayed is the healing properties that women had.
Mm,
Whether and it was, uh, is it hexordoxy? He I can't remember the word he used, but kind of, accepted that these Indian or indigenous women, Indian Christian women, still were sought out to heal, to, herbal medicines, to do
mhm,
blessing, to use prayer, certain type of prayer to heal, so that wasn't ever really washed out,
mm.
and again, that's really interesting with
Well, they
in the
stripped them down to what they saw as usable.
right, and what they wanted they didn't want their women to get any ideas, I imagine.
Well, weren't the indigenous women speaking up in church a lot? Like,
Yes.
because the Puritan women, they weren't allowed to talk in church, or am I wrong?
They could, but they were shushed or they were according to this article, when a in the Christian in Indian Christian churches, because they did have churches and congregations of Indian Christians,
Hmm,
and in those congregations, when a woman spoke up, everybody was quiet and listened, and it was taken seriously. In this article, they're saying that was not quite the case. That was not the case in Puritan churches. When a woman spoke up, she was tolerated or she was kicked out, or she was burned as a witch, or,
right, right,
or she was
as one
or
does.
she was tolerated, whatever, I'm sure it wasn't always but and but we all know that behind closed doors, like, there's cases for this, even the witch trials ended because the governor's wife was accused of being a witch, and so,
Mm,
behind closed doors, the women are still influenced, in the colonies.
yeah, it's
They
borrowed
know.
power.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the influence of
Well,
women.
when you say that, it makes me think about your description of the hearths and the longhouse and the ceremony and the councils of women and everyone in the community versus the picture I have of, the colonial house where the men of the reverend and the pension and select men would go inside and talk about problems that they had to solve. And often the wife of the governor would be hiding,
Yes,
trying to hear, trying to, she's not in the room. She can maybe hear about it and maybe she can, you know, what a
Mhm,
terrible way to live. Like
mhm.
when that's menopause in a way, like that filter goes away for some of us. Some of us are still lovely,
No.
but who cares? Like you only have so much time left to speak. Do you really want to hide behind the outhouse and hear other people's thoughts? You want
Right.
to be part of that conversation. That has nothing to do with anything. But
Or hope that you're married to a man who, when you tell him behind closed doors, "Hey, you know what? That's kind of a guys are really gonna go over there and you know, maybe don't, maybe not." And then if you're married to the a good dude who listens and will absorb it in his own brain and process it himself, maybe we'll go to the guys and be like, "Meh, maybe we don't wanna go, you know, let our cows in that Agawam cornfield and destroy their crops in hopes that they'll move along or whatever, There's just
Yeah. I mean,
so
it makes me there's a lot lost that, you know, if it could have been the other way,
mhm.
how much they would have gained, because I don't know, it's just a tragedy all around, but I think about the image. What would have happened socially inside that longhouse when these colonial people as they start more and more come and they've got their weapons and they got their pieces of paper they're waving around
And their alcohol.
and their alcohol and their, and they start treating being political with this king. All of a sudden he's a king now with people, he's important. He's talking. I mean, how did that break down the councils at that point? They started creating a king out of a chief or a sequim, right?
Yes. Yeah, a sake that, and that's what I wrote down too, is they did not believe in monarchies. So what and the English, that's what they were, thought that they were dealing with monarchies. So they wanted to seek out the king to negotiate with the king. And like we said in the beginning, uh, they would oftentimes make treaties with the wrong person,
Hmm.
who, of course, that's going to cause wars. And that's why there were skirmishes and so many things before King Philip's War. And the there were two that I found kind of. There's the vacuum domicilium, that's Winthrop. So he's the leader of the Puritans. They come over in 1630. He's the one, the pension. He's the leader of the Puritans. He believed in vacuum domicilium.
Hmm.
It's the concept that if tribes lived and cultivated land, so if they're used like a use it or lose it kind of thing. If you have corn on that field, then you can have that field. If you're fishing in that river, we see you fishing in that river, then that's your river. If you have a village in this part, but if you ever go, and they weren't nomadic, but they would go to they had land, they would go to
Hmm.
then you lose it. Then we can have that field, or we get to have that fishing water. So even in the treaties and
Wow.
negotiations, any land that was not obviously being used by a tribe was not even negotiable. Then there was a man named Roger Williams. I don't think he's related to John Williams of Deerfield, but who thought all indigenous land should be part of the agreement. Um, Not just the inhabited land. So you had to take, which is good and bad, I guess. Like, so there's all these different perspectives on how to get this land from these people, which is what they're doing. They know. Trappers have told them, they know that.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what's interesting is, yeah, they've seen the French, they've seen the Spanish, they've dealt with the Vikings who, um,
Yeah.
war states that, the Vikings were strong to deal with, but they would leave. All the people so far had come and gone and not really stayed. And I was looking at this timeline that says they found the earliest Agawam inhabitant at 12,000 BC, Paleo Indian.
Wow, that's
So for
fantastic.
12,000, and they were shocked that they had farms and their house was on their farm. They weren't all in a little village. They were,
Yes, spread out.
they had, think about the spiritual places all around. The springs and
Yes.
I don't, it's just,
Yeah, and they had started the agriculture years and years and years before Mesopotamia, the Mesolithic
yeah.
that we are taught in school was the beginning of agriculture. Um,
Yeah. So we
yeah,
lost a great society.
yes, and so I'll finish with this. I started with this big word last time. I'm gonna finish with this big word
Okay.
because it shows so many. Love it. And maybe I'm reading too much into it. And I'll put the word up here. We think
Okay.
we have invented the longest word with supercalifragilistic or whatever. Oh, I should have counted how many letters in this word. I'll show you the highlighted. Here it is. That's a word.
What? One word.
It's chagagag man chow gagag chow bungang gamag. Hopefully, maybe we'll edit that out. It's the name of a lake shared by the Nipmuc and one other tribe, so the people in this area, and it's in Algonquin, and this is the name of the lake. And translated, it is, you fish on your side of the lake, we'll fish on our side of the lake, nobody fishes in the middle of the lake.
Yes. That is very wise.
Right? So I just love that it's respecting the lake, it's respecting the fish, it's respecting the land, it's respecting politics, it's
There's a
respecting the other
plan.
side. Yeah, there's a plan, we're
If
gonna
the
name
ant
this lake
wanders
that.
in, you're gonna shoo the ant out.
There's instruction in the name of the lake, like, yes, go to Lake Chugadagda, and then the instruction about it is right
Yes.
there in the name of the lake. It's just So anyway, that was my presentation on that. I hope I didn't forget anything.
Thank you. I learned a lot, and I think it's perfectly paving the way. That now as we talk more about other things,
Yeah.
we can put those goggles on and those lenses because that adds a lot of dimension to these stories. And obviously, I hope that we can learn more and more. And but anyway, blah blah blah. We'll cut that part out. But
No,
thank
I
you.
love it. You're that yeah.
So next week we're gonna kind of go a little deeper
Yes.
into Agawam beliefs and how they intersect with. So you've got Prudence on one side, and is her name Elise?
Oh, let's do Eunice.
Eunice on the other side, and we'll kind of talk about how that conversation might have gone differently.
Yeah. If they go to church together.
Oh,
Yeah.
or let's go out to the swamp
Let's
and
go to
hang
the
out,
swamp. Yes.
light a fire and
Let's
hang
do
out,
it, girl. I
dance
love
maybe.
it. Yes.
If the moon's full. Okay.
Right.
All
All
right.
right. Well, thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
fun.
Yeah.
Okay. I love you.
I love you too. Excellent job, Sarah.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay. Bye.
Bye.